So we have postcard stamps up front here too. So if you have a chance, this is just something to work on in the background throughout the day. Look up your congress member or senator or representative, whichever one you think might be most impacted by this postcard. Write them a short note on the back. It could be some of the legislation that was brought up against restarting nuclear weapons testing, or it could be the TPNW, or it could be RICA, whichever you think might be most effective, but just get the word out. And I'll pass these around, and then if you have a chance, just come up here and get a stamp, and then we can send them in the mail. So that's all. Thank you.
Welcome to the Peace Pod breakout. I'm thinking that we can start with our 2026 goals that are going to be in our DC Days report. So here are goals from 2025 that are being screen shared. And then one note is to add our nuclear testing goals from our previous DC Days report. So we can start with stop new warheads. Does anyone have any suggestions or modifications that can be made on those? I can read them out loud if that helps, because the font is pretty yummy either. Cut fun. Is it an email that I missed, perhaps? No, we just pulled them up from the Peace Pod agenda that gets sent out. Yes. But it did get sent out, right? That did. So yeah, it's usually, so it's at the end of the Peace Pod agenda. Oh, okay. We have our previous goals. So the first one says cut funding for the W-84 long range standoff. 80-4 long range standoff air launched cruise missile warheads and the W-87-1 intercontinental ballistic missile warheads.
I might propose a change there because the W-80-4 long range standoff warhead at this point is very far along. I also think by having that in the mix with the W-87-1, it may be.
I was heading in the other direction.
Hey, this is Scott from Tri-Valley Cares. So I was just saying that having the two warhead systems in that, I think, dilutes the importance of challenging the W-87-1 warhead, which is the main driver for plutonium pit production, or a main driver. And the W-80-4 long-range standoff cruise missile life extension program is already a long way down the track at Livermore at this point. So I just wonder if it might be better to have it focus on the W-87-1, with also adding language there that it's the main driver of plutonium pit production as a reasoning. That's it.
I was gonna say, I don't know if this is related, but Trident at Kings Bay, would that be included under warheads, or is it in another area?
That's like a delivery vehicle, right?
Right.
And we don't have a great place for that. My perception is that, and it's always open for discussion, but we don't work so directly on the delivery vehicle development, because that's happening at DOD, at the Department of Defense. That's happening with contractors for DOD. And while the Trident is a nuclear powered submarine that can be nuclear armed, it just is a little bit out of scope of the nuclear weapons systems themselves that we tend to focus on. I think that it's always up for debate and discussion about how wide we want to cast ANA's net. But also part of it is that I think we don't have real subject matter experts on the delivery, on the submarines exactly. I mean, we know them, but they're not part of our organization necessarily, or any of our organizations. But yeah, Jay's going to chime in on this too. Go ahead, Jay.
I agree about dropping the W84-4. But I'd like to add the W93, which is the other driver for pit production. And it also happens to be the US's first completely new design since the end of the Cold War.
Yes. Oh God. That's terrible. The W93 is in the second bullet point. So should we keep that one as is?
Yeah, I overlooked that. Thank you, Tommy.
Oh, so for those that can't see the screen, the second bullet point says terminate the sub-launched W93 and sea-launched cruise missile warheads. And our third point on stop new warheads is retire and dismantle the 1.2 megaton W83 bomb. Those are our stop new warheads goals. Does anyone have any revisions or suggestions for the second two? Okay. Can move on to stop new bomb plants. The first one says eliminate requirement for 80 pits per year, stop legal requirement for at least 50 pits per year at SRS, stop plutonium pit bomb core infrastructure and production at the Savannah River site, restrain expanding production at the Los Alamos National Laboratory.
Should those be different points or are those all under the same? I guess, because there are different communities and living. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot, sorry.
Me too, we're all just hanging out. Should those be different bullet points or does it make sense to have them be all under one?
I think we were having them all under one as part of the big programmatic pit production plan because it is at Los Alamos and SRS. And there's the pits per year mandate that was added. So that's why they're all under one bullet point.
Can I just suggest a slight edit to the bullet point where we would start with eliminate requirement for 80 plutonium pits per year? It doesn't say plutonium there. Instead has that lower down where it says stop plutonium pit bomb core infrastructure. There it could just say pit production, or I mean, it could stay there too, but I think it needs to have plutonium in that first phrase.
I agree. I like that suggestion. Thanks, Scott. There you go.
The second one could actually just
I think I'm a little bit confused. Aren't we reviewing the 2025 goals? And we haven't moved on to the 2026 yet.
So we're drafting the goals for 2026, right?
Okay,
So we're
all
just
right.
branching off of our 2025.
Okay, so we're doing them like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have to start from scratch. We're just pulling up our previous years to do this year's. Okay. Our second point on that is just broad cut plutonium modernization funding. And then our third is mobilize citizenry for the nationwide programmatic environmental impact statement on expanded plutonium pit production, successfully drive substantial public comment.
And I want to say, I believe that substantial public comment should be part of the EIS process moving forward. So that should be a goal or recommendation for the EIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, comments.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to say here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, really quick. If these are our 2026 goals, just in general, this doesn't necessarily dictate what's going to be the DC days talking points, right? Because by DC days, the PEIS will have already happened, or is that incorrect?
That is correct.
Hmm.
I think the public hearings would have already happened. I think.
But challenging plutonium pit production will definitely still be a topic for DC days. I think it'll also be a time where, we'll be able to say things like we mobilized this many, 1,000, several thousand people to participate in public hearings and public comment. So it'll be kind of an informational campaign with members of Congress on what occurred during the public comment period to mobilize them to hopefully take action to cut funding for it or challenge it in other ways.
So what came up for me when you were speaking yesterday, Scott, was what can we do leading up to the public hearing phase of the PEIS?
That's a really good question, and I think we are going to discuss that stuff after we finish these goals. But it's going to be things like conducting trainings to prepare people for the public commenting, both the hearings and making oral public comments, and then doing written comments, because there will be 90 days to submit written comments. So some of that period will be after the oral comment hearings are done. And then in addition to that, doing like advertising and social media posts and creating talking points and creating sample comments and petitions and sign-on letters, the full gamut of stuff. But we have a time in the agenda to discuss that stuff.
Any comments from online on stop new bomb plants?
And just go ahead and raise your hand so I know to unmute you.
Okay, we can move to support rule of law and nuclear disarmament next. Our first one is the U.S. should honor the 1970 Non-Proliferation Treaty's Article 6 mandate to pursue negotiations in good faith on effective measures relating to cessation of the nuclear arms race at an early date and to nuclear disarmament. So, talking about the NPT, the next one is support the 1-year extension of New START, numerical cap on negotiations for a follow-on treaty without conditions to keep nuclear weapons forever and pursue reduction talks with China. And the third one, the U.S. should support the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. And lastly, the U.S. should withdraw nuclear bombs from Europe. So we have the NPT, New START, which is pretty important since it expires in February of 2026, the TPNW, and withdrawing our bombs from Europe. Okay. Yes, Scott.
I guess I just wanted to say the New START expires on February 6th, February 5th. So we might want to shift that talking point if it does expire to reflect that at that point. If there were to be a extension before that, which we all hope there will be, we'd also want to maybe edit it to be just about developing a follow-on treaty to New START, but that one's going to have to be kind of a tentative bullet point that might need changing before DC days, one way or the other.
So, sorry, go ahead, Karen, and then we'll go to Jay. Okay. So when the US is opposed to, you know, cannot, right, is there any way that we can ensure that there is some community benefits or some type of amendment to the treaty that speaks about community benefits?
For New Start.
I'm sorry?
For the New Start extension.
Yes, yeah. So an amendment to the treaty, something with mitigation, analysis, impact. Um, and then some, you know, maybe more direct community benefits, like, water analysis or, you know, air monitoring or something like that. Something, you know, that gets into the meat of, you know, true impacts to communities that have been harmed by the nuclear industry, and particularly waste and weapons.
Okay, Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sticking to New Start, and my first comment is some may seem minor. I think we ought to strike just 1 year and just simply leave extension. 1 year is not necessary. It's not clear how long any extension will be. My second point, you know, a follow-on treaty without conditions. When New Start was ratified in 2010, the Senate attached the condition for modernization. That's where it really started with $88 billion now metastasized to 2 trillion. So I just want folks to understand what that means. And that is largely runs counter to, I'm oversimplifying, but that we can end up being in conflict with the DC arms control community writ large on that. And I'm not seeking discussion. This is only a heads up. Now, with respect to what Kimberly brought up about, you know, beneficial conditions to New Start, I just don't think that is possible once there is a follow-on treaty. Again, you know, this is really high-level Senate ratification that requires the 67 senators to ratify. It'll be all we can do to keep out the bad conditions that will likely follow. So, you know, I hate to disappoint you, Kimberly, but I just regard that as not at all realistic.
Was there someone else? I guess I just wanted to add, though, that is part and parcel of the TPNW. And so, you know, making sure that we, or groups that are engaged in TPNW stuff, talk about that stuff in regard to TPNW is, I think that's the correct space for it, or the space where they'll hear it, you know?
I agree with that.
One
It's
other note
actually
about
integral.
community benefits. So like when you were talking, that kind of reminded me of like certain resolutions in the House, like House Resolution 317, has some measures to benefit the community, and you know, like rework certain nuclear jobs into non-nuclear, et cetera. So it talks a lot about the community, that specific resolution does. But I was kind of wondering how that would work next year. Like, does it have to be reintroduced in the House? Is that?
And I hear, but I just respectfully disagree, because Article 6 gives the communities a moral and legal obligation to be able, and a framework for this investment, right? You know, so this reparative investment. So if that's the case, then community benefits are already part of the treaty. It's just incumbent upon us to be able to make sure that they are held accountable to provide it. So if we have some type of amendment with this new start or whatever it is, then we should pull that out. And so that includes appropriations, there are all types of things that should come out of this treaty that we're not calling for the federal government to do for our nuclear frontline communities. So I think it's an opportunity for us to highlight that if that's where we're going.
Just to clarify, the extension would be strictly between
Oh.
Trump and Putin. It's not.
Yeah, hang on. Sorry. We gotta unmute you here. Pause. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just clarifying that it's two different things. There's an extension which is up on deck, then maybe, and underline maybe, there is a follow-on treaty. The extension is strictly between Trump and Putin. There won't be, Congress will not be involved in it, and there is no ratification process for it. So, I'm just kind of separating the steps, and maybe towards the latter, maybe we could resume this discussion if and when a follow-on treaty starts cooking.
The next one's nuclear testing. And we did have some nuclear testing goals in our 2025 DC Days report. We weren't thinking of doing them this year, but with Trump's announcement, I think we should re-add those to our 2026 ones, if that's something that everyone's in agreement upon. Okay. I can't remember what they were off the top of my head. Yes, that would be great.
One development is these Senate and the House resolutions, which call for there being congressional approval of any decision to resume testing. So that's something we could just state without stating that we are in support of the resolutions themselves, just that we support or supporting efforts to make sure Congress or legislative branch of government has the ability or has that there's a requirement to allow them to approve any resumption of testing before it were to occur.
I don't know. Is that strong enough?
No, I think it would be one of the things. But the other idea is nobody's really paying attention to the fact that the site-wide environmental impact statement for the Nevada National Security Site does not review a explosive nuclear test because they have not contemplated doing one. So there should also be a National Environmental Policy Act review, like an environmental impact statement about explosive nuclear testing before they would be allowed to conduct a nuclear test. And that might be a point that ANA is the only one calling for.
I think that's a good point. Chris, did you have a question, comment?
Just a clarifying question, please. Scott, you mentioned that there was a development that there were Senate and House resolutions. Is that the same or different than the No Nuclear Testing Without Approval Act?
It's the same.
Okay, so that's just a resolution? Or is
Sorry, no, you're right. They're acts.
Oh, okay. So that would be established into law then, enforceable, that it's Congress's decision. Okay.
If they approve it.
Okay. Thank you. That was just the clarification. The No Nuclear Testing Without Approval Act. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. It's like our goals from 2025 were pulled up. So we have reject calls to resume full-scale explosive nuclear testing. And I feel like that language can just stay like that. And
Yeah, I guess.
What about subcritical?
Republicans have the House, would they follow along? Well, sorry, just, I guess the question that comes to mind is if the Republicans still control the House and the Senate, would they then just fall in line with Trump?
There has been a moratorium before, I mean, so let's be helpful. But
Yeah.
that's definitely an issue.
Okay. I think that was it, right? There was only one nuclear testing goal on there.
The rest of it is just kind of more background, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we mentioned the comprehensive test ban treaty. I don't know, would there be any worth an effort to get the US to, or I mean, ratify, get that ratified? Or is that too big of too unlikely?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth bringing up for discussion. I mean, we've been trying to mobilize as quick as we can on this to prevent any next steps early on in the process as we can. And I think that what I learned from a meeting with Senator Bennett's office last week, a Colorado senator, is that apparently the comprehensive test ban treaty was voted down on a party line vote from ratification initially, and it was the Republicans who voted it down. So apparently, there were discussions while Obama was president to revisit it, but it never gained traction. So it seems like this party line situation is making it very difficult in order to ratify that treaty unless we are actually able to convince a few Republicans to change their mind. But it seems like everyone's trying to really work in lockstep right now, so that might be challenging. But I don't think we should rule out that possibility, especially if the majority changes. Then we should really be holding Democrats accountable to more radical progressive action.
And I know we mentioned TEF, but we still don't have a line item up there for no tritium production at any of the facilities, including SRS. So we have it up there, no tritium, no additional tritium production at SRS or any of the other facilities, just like we're calling out plutonium. I think we should highlight tritium as well.
In the new bomb plan.
Is there a specific facility at Savannah Riverside that we want to name? I think you just named it, but what is it?
It's the tritium extraction facility, so TEF.
And is that already operational?
It began operations in 2006.
Oh.
Jay has your. Oh. 1 second here. Okay, Jay.
I want to remind people, these goals need to be very general. We
Jay,
can't cut.
sorry, go start from the top, please.
Yeah, I just want to, as a reminder, these goals are very general. And, they cannot be all inclusive, but at the same time, they're not exclusive. So, just keeping it simple and general is what I'm arguing for. And we have to be careful not to distract or cloud kind of the main issues, which just leads me to a comment on the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Again, it takes 67 senators to ratify it. And that was a political impossibility back with Clinton. And it's definitely not going to happen under Trump and is unlikely to happen even if the Democrats happened to take the Senate. So, in short, I'm arguing for keeping it simple on the testing and just arguing against the testing itself.
And yes, Kimmy, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think that it might to keep it general is kind of to not really stand in our power in any way to like make it as easy as possible for them to I understand that maybe you want a more likely yes answer, but I don't think that it should come at the cost of excluding other impacted communities. Like kind of like to Kim's point, if we were only to focus on plutonium and not give that equal attention to tritium, then that seems a bit exclusive in a way that is unproductive because it excludes entire communities in the process. I don't know. That's just kind of what comes to mind when I hear that.
Out of curiosity, does Green Cod talk about tritium? Because it is a environmental cleanup issue. Does it come up in meeting?
Also, is the tritium production for weapons or is it related to
So they have an extraction facility that started in 2006. Part of their fiscal year 2026 budget is a tritium finishing facility.
say more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what we know. That's all that we know. You know,
Is that like a
so
whole different building?
it's a whole different building on site. So
Yeah, because I guess my worry with the existing facility is like, is that the kind of battle we can win? Is there something, I think it's really challenging to like something that's in production. Like there's lots of things in production at Livermore I'd love to shut down too. Lots of things at Los Alamos that we'd love to shut down, but it's like, I think things are a lot more vulnerable when they're in the like planning stage. So that second thing you're saying, the finishing,
facility.
that sounds like something that
It's
is
part of the fiscal year 2026 budget.
to get it started.
To get started.
Yeah, so
To get
that-
started.
That sounds like to me just like a thing that we can like build momentum to stop rather than like shutting down an existing thing.
Right, right.
Um,
And that's what I meant. I mean,
Uh-huh.
if we're putting thoughts behind, because the whole goal of this, and particularly for Georgia One, is that it's nuclear harm reduction. So we're trying to stop the harm that these nuclear industries have already done and continue to do to our frontline communities. So if we just highlight plutonium, you know, we need to highlight the other environmental impacts that we know are hazards that come from nuclear production, whether it's waste, power, or weapons, right? And so you can't just, in our head, you know, I don't want to just support legislation that just deals with one when we know we have another killer over here that's causing cancer, which is tritium, right? So if we have an opportunity to highlight them both, then why not? And what we're just saying is stop the increase of nuclear production, including the byproducts that come from it, which includes tritium.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would want that to be a goal as part of this part.
Sorry. Especially, yeah, just hearing you say that, like we can't ask Georgia One folks to come to advocate for other people's communities in a way. Does that make sense? Where it's like, if we're going to ask Georgia One to be giving their resources to this, it should also be specific to their communities. And if we want to diversify this movement, we need to be cognizant of that as well and not just have, I don't know. I think it makes sense to diversify that topic.
I think tritium from weapons should be added along with plutonium. I mean, there's other facilities that deal with tritium as a byproduct too. Yes, it's a big issue at Savannah River site, but it's not like exclusive to Savannah River site. So I think that's a bullet that could be added. I don't know. Kim, if you want to draft.
Kansas City makes the receptacles for tritium. So they work with SRS on that.
Kim, do you know in the budget, do they have, because we have here to stop plutonium modernization funding. Is there also like, is the tritium building under a line item called tritium modernization? Like plutonium gets one? I'm just trying to think of a succinct way for us to add it in. And I do like Kim's idea too. I'm sorry, I like Anne's idea. I'm looking at him talking about it. Anne's idea too about like addressing it to be a little bit broad. Like there's a tritium facility at Livermore. I'm sure there's probably one at Los Alamos too. They're often paired with the plutonium work, or it's often paired to plutonium work. But to halt tritium modernization, if we could have it be nice and parallel to the plutonium modernization ask, that'd be cool, I think, or just.
Yeah, it looks like it's, under the DOE fiscal year, appropriation detail. You have the Tritium and Defense Fuels Program, you have the Tritium Finishing Facility, that's SRS. And then it's 35,000, 50,000, whatever, I don't know what these numbers are, but that's, so it has its own line item is where we're getting at under the budget. DOE's budget for fiscal year 2026.
Brilliant. Do people think we could just still refer to it as tritium modernization or funding for? How do we want to phrase that in these goals? Anybody have a suggestion?
Isn't the half-life of tritium about 12 years?
Something
So
like
they need to replenish it frequently.
Jen, is that something that, or I don't know if you had a specific answer to what Scott just asked, or if you would, if someone in Georgia Watt would have a way they would want that to be phrased, or someone else in an impacted tritium community, because I'm not aware.
Yeah, Kim, or anyone else, if you have like language that you want.
The expansion of tritium production.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Like saying, restrain.
The expansion of tritium, like what was the last one?
You said production.
Production.
Thank you.
that seems like it would give us some nice flexibility to work on. Tritium at Savannah Riverside, tritium at Kansas City plant, tritium at Livermore, Los Alamos, and wherever else it might be. And Pantex. Yeah.
And then in like, so we have a one pager, which will just have like our bullet points. But we also have a report. So in the report, we can expand upon that and talk about the different communities that are impacted.
Okay.
Thanks for the addition, Kim.
And then I just wanted to go back to Anne mentioned, and I know it's in here, but Rika, does anyone know, where is Rika in here? Is that in?
I think that's like
It's usually a green pod topic. Okay, yeah, I've been kind of wondering about that myself. I know, yeah.
It's one of those.
So it's in there.
It's one of those.
Because it's.
I think last year I put House Resolution 317 in there. And I talked a bit about Rika in 317. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Universal healthcare.
I think we, like, as Peace Pod, briefly mentioned Rika in the report, but I think it's a talking point, like, that's in the Green Pod section. So I think it's a bullet point in the Green Pod section, but I think we have like a little mention of Rika in our report for us. Yes. So in the Green Pod, it's reauthorize and expand Rika.
And then do we want to discuss DNFSB?
Right. I have feelings about it, but I'm also not most knowledgeable about it either. I guess maybe I would like to know what I know, I understand that generally the spirit of the NFSB is to create safety, to stop unsafe things from happening. Has that ever happened? Have they actually stopped anything from happening? Or is it just another government thing? I don't know.
Well,
I don't
nice thing about them is they have inspectors that go to the facilities and they issue public reports that we can all read on that. So like that's nice that like transparency.
Yeah, like, can we actually trust them to be transparent, or would they just tell us what they're allowed to tell us? Like, are they actually on our side, or are they on the side of the DOE? Because they're technically government people. They're in with government people. Kind of the vibe that we got at GC Days was like, is this lady our op? Like, I don't know. We don't know. I could just be suspicious because of government people, but I was just like, who is this lady? Why should I care about what they do? Maybe if I could trust that the reports were actually accurate. I don't know.
Here, I think Jay has something to say. One sec. Okay, Jay, go ahead. Wait, okay. Jay, you're on mute.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that was bonehead error. I was saying I have, kind of a long history with the safety board. The problem is that they don't have regulatory authority, and that's by design. Um, all they have is oversight, and they issue reports. Answering the question of whether one can trust them, over 20 years, I've never had any reason not to trust them. Their reports are highly technical, very credible. They themselves have ample technical background, and without them, I'm using Los Alamos as an example. Without them, we simply would not know about Lanel's chronic history of nuclear incidents. So, in my book, the safety board's very important, and I wish they were really regulatory, but they're not.
Forum now.
No,
No, they lost it.
they lost it.
So they just don't exist right now.
They exist. They just can't issue recommendations. They don't have the authority to. But they still have inspectors, correct? Yeah.
So can they still give those reports without having quorum?
They can make reports, but not recommendations.
To DOE.
So I guess what you would, if we were to have this as part of our goals, it would be, please nominate someone to this board so that they can make recommendations. Okay.
Yeah.
But then have previous recommendations when they have had quorum, have those recommendations been taken in? Actually, Jay, maybe you would know, or someone, have those recommendations ever mattered?
The recommendations.
Sorry, Jay. One second. Okay. Go ahead.
The recommendations do matter. All that the Department of Energy is required to do by law is to respond to the recommendations, not to actually implement the recommendations. And there's one recommendation that the board made for the pit production facility at Los Alamos, that the board made that recommendation in 2004, and only in the last couple of years has DOE been clear that it is refusing that recommendation. But the recommendations are important.
Okay, so it's kind of like creating that record of trying. Is that kind of like what you were saying yesterday? So it's like it shows that, like, okay, we are having these conversations, we are saying this is what should be done, and they're actively refusing to do what's right. And that's why it matters to have the recommendation.
Exactly, it goes in the public record.
Okay.
Okay. No, I think we need to move forward
Let's
with
move on.
plutonium pit production.
Okay.
That's a campaign topic, yes.
Mhm.
That's what our next thing is.
Yeah, we have until 2:15 here.
Well, I guess I'll just start by saying we have several of the organizations here that will have communities where there is going to be a public hearing on plutonium pit production. We have a little bit of money to do some outreach, to build public participation in the process, both around the public hearing and around the public comment period, which will be 90 days. While the agency has said it will be in the February, March timeframe, we don't know that for sure. But I think we need to be ready to begin our public outreach in earnest starting in the beginning of the year. And I'd like to propose that we at least start with like a monthly call just about pit production BEIS commenting in January. And I know it's annoying to add more calls, but there's just frankly not enough time in the monthly Peace Pod call to focus on this campaigning. And also it doesn't necessarily apply to all of the organizations, like in places where there's not a public hearing. I think we need to do some public hearing specific ideas and resource sharing. By resource sharing, I mean like we should have top line campaign language so that we're not all recreating the wheel around it. Maybe some image sharing, some resources like petitions or ways for people to sign up to comment. But just, let's work together on all of that. And then also coming up with ideas of in each community, what specifics people might do. Because I think it will vary, like how do you do outreach in your community? What do people see? What are the most effective methods, whether it's social media or letters to the editor or print news advertisements or putting a billboard up in town or getting different coalitions that involved. So we just want to be there to support, and then also creating some way to record metrics, like how many people are involved, et cetera. And then also we want to do trainings, and their UCS and Dylan Spalding at UCS has committed to helping with trainings. And also they're going to help develop a single kind of unified web page that we all can link to with resources on it that can help people make both oral and written comments. I want to include them on these monthly calls I'm talking about. Jay, did you want to add anything about plutonium pit production campaigning?
I got one heads up. There's a group of scientists called the Jasons that have been consultants to the government since the Vietnam War. And their record is very mixed, starting with the Vietnam War. In 2006, they came out with a pit lifetime study that said that pits last at least a century. A new study could come out any day now, but the time is unknown. And Scott Yunt already mentioned Dylan Spalding at UCS. Dylan personally knows some of those scientists. And from the little bit of insight that he's gotten is that basic premise that pits last a century probably won't change, but there's a political overtone in which they endorse plutonium pit production and expanded production. And this could end up being a real problem. There's not anything direct that we could do about it. Again, this is a heads up. Nuke Watch would probably issue a press release. ANA might consider doing the same. This is the kind of thing that Congress would pay a lot of attention to, and especially when it's pro-production. So again, as stated, this is a heads up. Could come out any day now.
Thanks, Jay. Regina, go ahead.
I just wanted to be on that committee, and I'm taking the class that PSR is offering right now on radiation, and that is primarily to prepare people to be able to give substantive comments. So there seem to be a lot of other groups outside of ANA that are focusing in on this. And I want to make sure that WILF and other peace organizations that normally don't make comments at program EISs might have an opportunity to do that in some way. And it sounds like the website will be a good organizing tool around that. But I do have some ideas about getting some other people to be able to testify who are from allied groups that normally would not, because that was, I think, one of the goals this time, is to really expand our ability to get people to comment at this environmental study. So that's one point that I hope we can do more of.
Go ahead.
I just want to bring up the points of the TPNW anniversary. The 5th anniversary will be coming up. I think it was January 22nd. And then there's going to be a nuclear deterrence summit the following week. And then, of course, the doomsday clock announcement. And so those might be things to kind of keep in mind as we do our I don't know, press releases or whatever.
Great.
2026.
Okay, sounds good.
Real quick, Regina. Whoop, sorry, 1 second.
Yes?
Go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, it can wait till that committee meeting. It was really about the fact that we're not allowed to make general policy statements in EISs anymore. And that's going to impact on our external. We want to, in our publicity, we want to talk about those things because we're not going to be able to actually get them to comment in the EIS. And most of the public is not aware of that. So that's a real issue we need to address.
I'll take a minute to expand on what Regina is saying while we're waiting for the next session. The new president, or the current president, issued an executive order early on in his term directing every federal agency to do away with their NEPA implementation regulations, starting over with a focus on speeding up the process of federal approval of projects. And the DOE went ahead and got rid of all their existing NEPA implementation guidance and regulation and came up with a new set that was finalized in July of 2025. And the first result of this is they issued a Federal Register notice last week saying that they are two in-process environmental impact statements, and this does not include our programmatic environmental impact statement, because our programmatic environmental impact statement was judicially ordered pursuant to a judicially enforceable ruling. But there's two others. The first is the Sandia site-wide environmental impact statement for Albuquerque, and the second is Livermore's separate supplemental environmental impact statement for enhanced plutonium utilization, which was already scoped. They've decided that under the new rules, whenever they're doing an environmental impact statement or assessment, they no longer are going to issue drafts, and they're no longer going to have the public comment period on the draft of environmental impact statements. And so these are the first two examples of that policy coming into effect. And so when I put my lawyer hat on, what I would say is these two situations, the Sandia and Livermore situations, are the first time there's standing to challenge this new rulemaking. Because just when a rulemaking is issued, you can't sue because of the rulemaking change until it actually affects somebody. Now it's affecting us. Just to clarify too about what this difference is, it means that we'll still have scoping from what we can tell, but when they do scoping, that's just on a notice of intent, which is a very cursory couple paragraphs in the Federal Register that they're doing a program. Very difficult to give very substantive comments on notices of intent. All the data, all the analysis comes out in the draft version of the document. And that's where there's fodder to comment. And that's where experts can get involved and give opinions on radiation exposure or impacts from fire or whatever. But we're losing all that technical commenting opportunity and all the just general public opposition commenting opportunity that comes with the draft. So it'll go directly from scoping to a final version of the document. They are also taking away the 30-day period that has always existed between the release of a final and a record of decision, which has often been another opportunity to comment. I mean, it doesn't go on the record, but often groups have commented then they're just going to issue a final decision with the, a record of decision with the final EIS. So it's a major change. It's been a tool that ANA groups have utilized for decades to challenge things and to engage public in the public comment period, public involvement. So it's not good. Yes. Can you hand this up?
So what recourse do we have against this rulemaking? You said that we have to prove harm was caused by this new rule, and then we could sue them?
That's right.
And is that the plan? Is to show harm?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this announcement just came out Wednesday before this week and this event. So yeah, we're definitely in early stages of deciding what to do. Tri-Valley Cares believes it would have standing with the decision about Livermore. I think New Mexico-based organizations would have standing because of the decision around Sandia, Albuquerque. I also think now DOE is going to start doing the same process with all of their upcoming environmental impact reports or statements. So lots of other places might soon have standing, but yes, it does mean that technically we should be able to go to court and prove that we have a harm and get a judge's opinion on this rule change. Whether we have capacity to bring that lawsuit is yet to be determined. And, we're going to kind of do some writing and analysis about it and talk to some attorneys to see who might help us. But it's in very early stages of what to do. So, and again, it doesn't affect the plutonium pit thing. So we also are trying to focus on that for now. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up, Scott, and let's litigate. Let's go. I raised my hand for a different reason. It was just to, we haven't discussed it. We're not going to. I'm just raising it. We should pound on the costs of pit production and the fact that NNSA still has no credible cost estimate, never has, and doesn't look like it will. And by my own calculations, the pit plant at the Savannah River site will end up being the second most expensive building in human history. So the costs are just, leave me shaking my head. So we should be pounding on costs. Last item, just because we're running out, this is a whole nother issue. But ANA and ANA member groups, in my opinion, should try to begin to grapple with the fact that the Department of Energy intends to hand out weapons grade plutonium to commercial entities, which is just nuts. So a whole nother topic that I see could be more NEPA litigation, because there should be a supplemental programmatic environmental impact statement on that.
Thanks, everyone. That concludes our breakout sessions.